Okay, look, let's just stay on topic. So, like, I'm learning how to choose a topic and then stick to topic. Because when we go around and add different topics, everything gets convoluted and confusing. And then, we don't. So, I think when people are emotionally, and I'm one of them, when people are emotionally attached to a certain subject, immediately you think, I'm right. My opinion is right. And what I have to say is right. So that when anyone has an opposing opinion, what happens is an argument happens. So the perspective was, hear me out. Let me change my light. There we go. The perspective was basically when we, what's up, Dan? Dan, you're going to let me have it. The perspective was, okay, like, let's be honest. George Floyd was no saint, right? But then the emotional attachment of the situation was how he ended up passing away, right? So, in contrast, not comparing, but the woman who was at Capitol Hill who got shot by police, because we're talking about my last post, she's not justified because she knew what she was doing. That's what everyone is saying. But in retrospect, both sides, Floyd and the girl, I don't even know her name, but she's a Air Force vet. So, in retrospect, terrorist attempt, criminal prison background. There's not one better than the other, is what the perspective was. In the last post, I was just saying, how come and why? How come when you have black skin, criminal background, assaulted by police, and then life isn't here, everyone did all that stuff last year, the protesting and burning things down and wanted justice. But then you have white skin, served for the country, made a stupid decision, and isn't here, there's less sympathy. So that's the perspective. It's not, I wasn't trying to say I'm right by saying that she needs to be justified because she served for our country. I was just saying the two are exactly on the same platform of shame on you, right? But do people deserve to die? No. So that's where we're all there's people in the comments who are going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. I'm like, you guys, this isn't like a discussion. It is really conversation on what do you guys think about. And that's where everyone went way off topic. And so I'm learning how to be a appropriate, mature moderator by putting us back on topic, because the news media outlets should be having this and they don't. What they do is just keep pounding the headlines to keep you guys going. Click, click, click. It's because networks need ratings. Ratings is money. They getting paid to do what we're doing for free. That is the perspective. So again, I see more people coming in. You got brown skin, criminal background, assaulted by cops, but then had charges of cocaine and what was it, fake money, right? And then you have light-skinned female, did something stupid on Capitol Hill, breached security, but served as a Air Force. She was 51 years old, mom, vet. She probably was like an anarchist. Maybe she was pissed that Trump was in office. Maybe she wanted to, impose as a Trump supporter, and then who knows? But that part we don't know. We just know that the news told us Trump. They said no. In their actual words, to be factual, this is my perspective. They were saying, It's funny when I say Trump, my live numbers go down. You guys are so triggered. That's the problem is words create triggers and people have to, as adults, y'all gotta learn how to handle your triggers. You really do. Because I'm still learning that, but I'm learning there's rewards when you handle your triggers. But people go, I don't want to hear it. And that's the problem. When you don't want to hear it, you shut it off. It accumulates more attention, and then you just go and you rawr somewhere else. But see, boom, thank you. And to let you guys know, I do have somebody who has a licensed background in psychology. Bye, girl. Yeah, so it's just kind of funny how, again, somebody in the wrong place, knowing what they were doing, were probably wanting to be this person to lash out and act a fool, and got caught in the middle. Bam. And I just heard that it was a black cop that shot her. And that guy got to hall pass because he was doing the right thing. And that's what I always tell people, like, do you see the narratives? The narratives. Everything's a narrative. And narrative is kind of like prior to strategy. You know, before you strategize something, you gotta have a narrative. Or if there was an accident, you guys watch Scandal when Olivia Pope walked in. They have to strategize, you know, the scenario. They have to create a narrative because when it goes in public, that's what has to be narrated. You can't go back and fix the narrative once it's presented. And that's what I dislike about the news networks. They are quick to run their mouth, and it's like you trying to get ratings and people to watch your network, but then you guys are not getting all the details. That's the problem. So was the vet girl in the right? No. Did she deserve to die? No. And if you're like, but she was a terrorist, you should never wish a life to die. Like, leave that between God and that person. And essentially, if everything's created in God's divine image, then he's dealing with himself. Stay out of his business. Because when it comes to your book of life and your time, what are people going to say about you? That's where I'm working at is, you know, I witness a lot of death. And no death is great. But I think, not to say too much, but my brother's passing a year or so ago. The details came out after, and it was like, ooh. So I kind of see a parallel in the story of wrong place, wrong time. I see the parallel with, was that a good choice? No. Did he deserve to die? No. It's just unfortunate. So that's how I process it. And I respect that a lot of people on my posts were not mean or feisty, or, you know, people didn't attack me. So I rightfully respect everybody's opinion. Thank you guys for respecting my opinion. But Floyd, why did we give him a hall pass? Because Black Lives Matter was already, weren't they already on to the Breonna Taylor situation? And then Floyd was like in the same month or week or something like that. So we were already fueled. And I think when you fuel people of color, or the narrative says that people of color stand. People, you know, you've been slaves for a lot. And that's what I don't like when people keep saying slavery, because you think black slaves or when the civil rights movement came about. That's not true. Civil rights movement was the civil rights movement. Black slavery or African slavery, which happened 500 years ago, y'all. That's when you take people from their homeland and you put them here to work. And the first thing that they worked for was the stock exchange. Well, before it was the stock exchange, it was trading. You trade your slave labor for my trade slave labor because I don't like him. Remember The Help? The movie The Help? When they were trying to trade and they were like, nah, she's old. We don't want her. That's what it was 500 years ago, essentially. 250 years ago. So I don't know. People get their perspectives wrong. So that's why I was like, I'm going to start calling my live streams The Perspective Is. And the thing about it, I'm going to be shady towards you guys who are watching. Not you guys, but in general. For those who keep watching my dialogue, a lot of people don't have much to say. But then in the comments, there's a lot of things people be saying and a whole lot of friends that I have to block because some people take the headlines of what the topics are and they start bringing me involved in it. Like I think the last hurtful comment I saw was back in November where someone said, you burn all your bridges, as well deserved. Nobody should work with you because you're an a-hole. And I was like, what does that have to do with the topic? Stick to topic. And I think sticking to topic and sticking to the dialogue that is presented helps you organize your mind. It helps you stay concentrated on the subject at hand. Because when we convolute and we mix everything, then we're becoming emotionally attached, and then that creates triggers. And psychologically, we should not be having triggers. Our goal is to avoid as many triggers as possible. And what's happening is media and all sorts of outlets of media, their goal is to create triggers as much as possible because that's what keeps you appealed to the source, right? So a lot of these media networks are what? Bi-coastal? They weren't in DC, so how did they get all the information that quick? All they were doing quickly, or I guess the narrative said, pro-Trump supporter groups or Trump supporter groups attack Signal Hill. Once that goes out to the world, you can't change the narrative. See, I said the T word again and my numbers and doop. That's a trigger. So I guess the arrogant, egotistical side of me says, like, I'm here to prove a point. Not that I'm right or wrong. I'm just here to prove a point. And a lot of my points are just open-ended. Because when you point, the direction goes on and on and on, right? Or if there's an object at hand, I would say. And the only object that I would say is, are you waking up? Are you seeing the perspective? Are you seeing what's going on? Do you see the narrative? Do you see how you're triggered? Do you see what? And if I were a life coach, if I were a spiritual guru, I would say, like, everything is energy, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. But what needs to happen when it comes to news networks and narratives is the need for attention. So when we go, grrr, we're putting all that energy into something, and then guess what? We keep our focus there and grrr, because there's a conduit. Isn't that how energy works? A conduit? Anyways, I'm going to stop talking. I'm done. Thank you guys for tuning in. The Perspective Is with Aaron Davis. I'm out.